Because if the world does go on a global Bitcoin standard, a lot of these institutions starve because they all work on fiat money and the Ponzi schemes that are fiat money. And Bitcoin eviscerates and eradicates all of that. So that's one way it can be defunded and destroyed. The banking business has gone from your local banker making a loan to start a business to being somebody who's trying to actively get you into debt, right? All civility has been drained from the system. And a lot of people are not gonna do well. You know, when you're talking to somebody, you got $1 million trade on the line, it's like, brother, you got to sell it in a way that they want it, and they don't care about you. It's the number go up psychology that brings a lot of people in, but it's not really what it does. It's not about just I'm buying it cheap, it's going higher, I made money. That's the least important part of Bitcoin.
Today, as the crypto market continues to crash, with Bitcoin falling below $96,000, billionaires like Elon Musk sound the alarm amid Bitcoin price crash fears that we could witness something much worse in the weeks to come. But Max Keiser issues a warning to all Bitcoin and crypto holders, and the sell-off we're seeing is only the beginning. The Bitcoin tsunami that's coming will change crypto forever, and Keiser discusses the inevitable collapse of the fiat money system as we know it, and says there's a plan to take over Bitcoin and crypto. With BlackRock being one of the biggest players to get into the space, this will be the least of our concerns, as entire countries are now coming for Bitcoin, with the current price sitting just under $97,000, still down over 14% in the past month. In this latest interview, Keiser discusses why it's more important than ever that nation-states adopt Bitcoin and incorporate into the global economy before the inevitable collapse of the current monetary system as we know it. Everyone's focused on tariffs, inflation, and the so-called weak dollar, but Max Keiser is seeing something completely different, and it might be the most underreported economic shift of 2025. Behind the scenes, the US just pulled off what could be the biggest corporate tax cut in modern history without even changing the official rate. Through new depreciation rules, companies can now write off almost everything. That drops the effective corporate tax rate to somewhere around 10 to 12%. That means the US just became the lowest taxed major economy on Earth. Let's get right into the latest interview with Max Keiser, as he gives us his prediction for Bitcoin in the coming months, and why a massive surge in capital is about to pour into the space. Drop your comments down below and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here.
Everything that you say in terms of deception and corruption is funded by folks that are easily just print money all day long.
Yes,
right? There's no accountability. Yes. They can just print any mistake you make, you just print more money.
Yeah.
And that creates a malinvestment. It creates a feeling that morals don't exist anymore. There's nothing ethical anymore. If I make a problem, I do something wrong, I just print more money.
Yes.
So Bitcoin is absolutely scarce. You can't print it. So it's truth. As a matter of fact, years ago, the Time or Newsweek magazine ran a cover story, Bitcoin, the truth machine. It is literally the embodiment of what you would expect to be the truth. And if you can apply that to your money, then you can think about money in a different way.
Go on.
Which is how to be able to communicate truth from person to person without being censored by anybody who's trying to tell you what the truth really is. If you know in your heart what the truth is and you want to communicate and you want to transact and you want to be in a community with somebody and you only use Bitcoin, it's unconfiscatable and it's uncensorable. So no one can take my Bitcoin and no one can stop me from transacting my Bitcoin. If we're all in the same path of discovering the truth, then that means that collectively, using Bitcoin as that medium of exchange and store of value, we are building that citadel, that edifice, that place that we all dream about. If the big states and the macro and the states decide they don't like it, there's nothing they can do about it. That's why these circular economies are thriving. You can't ban Bitcoin, you can only ban yourself from Bitcoin. So you have all these circular economies popping up and they're all going to merge, and this country will essentially become a decentralized country. It'll be governed by the people who have all the money. The government itself will just be there to assist the people in what they need to get done, that they can help out with in whatever way they can, but they have no authority on the money supply. The money is owned by the people.
I get that, and I like that. So then how significant historically has the establishment of currencies been in empire and power? How significant, like literally coinage and exchange, how significant has that been? So how important was the establishment of the dollar for the United States and various other sovereign forms of You know, like
Money existed before the state. Bitcoin separates money from state. Bitcoin kills the state. That's the path. You know, the president was trading Bitcoin back in 2017. He was talking about it. He recognized the Bitcoin as being a way for this country to leapfrog into the main stage of geopolitics. But in the UK, you have people that understand this, that are becoming Bitcoiners, who are seceding essentially from the state. Now, what the state has done is they've ramped up their attack by doing what's called central bank digital currency.
Yes.
Right, which is a surveillance technology.
Yes.
So they are in contention with each other. On a more global scale, you have like China and the United States and the UK and Europe are now involved in what I call the global hash war, where they understand that Bitcoin is the only real true asset that is going to mean anything going forward. Now they're scrambling, like the space race in the 60s, to acquire as much as possible. And also in the UK, you have what I call the gulag casino economy. So it's a gulag, it's a digital gulag, as you've described, but it's also a casino, in that you can go to Ladbrokes, digital Ladbrokes, and bet on an outcome of something for a protein, you know, £1 of protein pill to keep you alive long enough to live the next day to continue gambling at Ladbrokes. But you have no rights, you have no freedoms, and you're in the digital gulag. I mean, isn't that what we're living in now, where it's everyone's scrambling, you know, for the last crust of bread and on their own, abandoned without any governance model whatsoever, or any morals or any ethics. So, and also in the UK, the corollary to that is that in the UK, because it is so painful for so many, you have, as a byproduct, living through the hell of governments run rampant by printing lots of money. There's a very high adoption of Bitcoin already as a way to escape the inflation. So and Bitcoin is inflation proof.
Embracing an unyielding enthusiasm for the crypto realm, Keiser confidently predicts that the next collapse is looming on the horizon, as BlackRock and many other crypto giants are bracing for. Keiser reassures that a long-expected surge awaits, as Bitcoin's price will still rise exponentially in the second half of 2025.
The multi-hundred-year, really the 1,000-year presence of a monarchy in England, you know, how do you break through that? Well, for 1,000 years, we've always had the situation where if you put together a community and they start trading with each other and that there's money involved, that money is always controlled by a governing authority. And that's been true since the beginning of time. Only in 2009, on January 3rd, with the Bitcoin made its appearance, is the first time ever in history that money can exist entirely out of a central authority. That means that people are free to live without having that central authority controlling that thing that they use every single day to get by through the day. And that's why it's such an interesting possibility with Bitcoin to achieve the ultimate, I mean, the highest dreams and ideals that one would hope for in terms of unleashing the human potential that we all have, but has always seems to get snuffed out at some point in the journey. Central banks have been tried in the US several times and they all got defeated. And then on Christmas Eve or over the Christmas break, some bankers got together on Jekyll Island famously, and they created the Federal Reserve Bank. And yes, that does centralize the money supply, and it also takes the money supply creation out of the hands of the government and puts it into a private bank owned by private bankers. So that is really, and also introduced income tax. So that was, before then, the U.S. only had sin tax for tobacco, alcohol, things like that, right? There was no actual income tax, and they started off very small, now it's gotten very big.
Wow.
And so that's highly significant in the history of the United States, and it's the beginning of all that money in income tax goes to feeding this thing called the state, and the state, as we know, more and more and more, whether it's Elon Musk and his Doge program exposing vast waste of trillions of dollars.
Well, with the U.S., under Trump, it's like a fantastic break, trying to get rid of all the waste and the fraud and the abuse. And he's really in a position to rejigger the economy and bring in a lot of jobs, right? The whole tariff scheme is bring in a lot of these factories and factory jobs and bring them all back and have them in the U.S. And he might be successful. You know, at the current trajectory, if things keep going the way they are, I would think he would be successful. So you're at this point. You're at this point. So it's either, you know, give in and capitulate, which to me comes back to Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin is something that can throw some light into these shadows and give somebody some purpose where maybe they don't feel they have purpose. Thankfully, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a get-rich-slow scheme, because instant wealth usually brings instant problems. More money, more problems, right? Don't compare yourself to anybody else. There's nobody else out there is on your journey, and they don't care about you.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could survive if I were 31 years old right now. I don't know if I could survive, really. It's too daunting. For me, as I explained it, it was easy. For you and your generation, it's really, really hard. And a lot of people are not gonna do well. But I think with Bitcoin, it offers a lot of philosophical depth. It's successful because it's a community, right? It's open source community. It's like open source software meets money, right? It's what made open source software successful, because it's a superior to centralized software. Decentralized open source software is a better solution because it's community driven, community led, and the community will always do better than a centralized system, right? So it's very important. It's the key aspect to it, the community of Bitcoin. And as the community grows, all the metrics improve. People are actually quite poor in the US, a lot poorer than the statistics would capture. And so there's a lot of, on the fringes and on the margins, there's a lot of folks that are in desperate situations.
The Bank of Japan, historically central to global currency dynamics, is on the brink of default, which could precipitate a global economic downturn. Max foresees a looming economic catastrophe driven by collapsing fiat money systems, rampant inflation, and bank failures. He suggests that a transition to a Bitcoin standard might be on the horizon as the world grapples with the impending crisis. He asserts that the promises made by the Federal Reserve and central banks have been hollow, leading to excessive money printing and a proliferation of poor investments. And with the aftermath of the recent inflation surge, Keiser says this will not lead to a return to the status quo. He argues that the economy has spun out of control, with the US facing a mounting debt crisis. Keiser presents two bleak possibilities: hyperinflation or a deflationary depression. In either scenario, the overall quality of life deteriorates. He notes the absence of viable solutions, indicating an even greater severity of the crisis. Interestingly, he points out how political figures are discussing Bitcoin as part of a potential solution, marking a shift towards a Bitcoin-centric financial framework. What do you think about the latest interview with Max Keiser? And what are your thoughts on his prediction for Bitcoin? Drop your comments down below and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here.